Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON. I'm Cliff Kelly. It's March 9th. We're at WVON, obviously, and this is America's Heroes Group continuing. We had a great first half an hour, and we're going to have some more great information for you in the second half. With us in our studio, we have Hugh S. Turner, who is the Executive Director of VA Benefits in the Chicago Regional Office. Good to see you again, sir.
Hey, good to see you again,
Great,
Cliff.
great.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Every day's a great day.
There you go. That's right. We know that. You have another guest here.
Yes, we sure do. We brought with us today Miss Deborah Montgomery, who heads up our appeals team at the VA Regional Office here in Chicago.
That's great. And this is a big change, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
What we're going to talk about today
Yeah.
is a significant change for
That's
us.
great. Before we do that, I just want to mention we have another number in our new studio, 312-374-8130, 312-374-8130. And we had a caller who was holding, and I just want to take him if we can. Sel, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Sel, thanks for calling. Sorry I didn't
Thank
get
you.
to
First of all, I didn't know that Mr. Turner was going to be on today, but since he is, I need to share this with you. You're looking at 60 years between him and his father of service to this country. Over 60 years combined.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
And the last time I was there, I asked him to please put his father's picture on his wall and his picture. And I hope that you've done that, Brother Turner. But I really was calling in to talk with Mr. McGill and the doctor regarding PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
I proposed to the head of the psychiatry department, Dr. Yant, who retired month before last, that I would say would start a PTS therapy group that was more progressive than the one that I have been attending for the past 5 years or so. My reason is that it's stressful to me to go in every month hearing guys talk in square circles about nothing.
You know,
Same thing.
Sal, let me cut you off because obviously I'm sorry we didn't get to you before they left, and we're changing a little bit. But you know, we contact each other, right? So
Sure.
yeah, Sal. So let's talk, and we can arrange something. Okay?
Real good.
All right. And thank you so much for calling, and we'll work that out because what you said makes a lot of sense. Thanks so much for calling. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Turner, what Sal just said about your dad and yourself, 60 years between the two of you?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to tell folks that myself, I spent 48 years in the Army. My father was a retired command sergeant major and spent 32 years on active duty himself. Came at the end of World War II.
He was in the Army?
He was in the Army.
Both are.
And both in the Army. And, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam.
Wow.
And, my recollection certainly is amazing. I had an opportunity as a dependent to travel the world and
Sure.
get exposed to different cultures. The other thing, most significantly about him, and I don't want to spend much time on this, he came in when there was a segregated army. His first 5
Isn't that
years,
something?
his first 5 years were in all black units.
Wow. Okay.
And then to
What was
witness
his
the
MOS?
changes. Believe it or not, he was a chaplain's assistant.
Is that right?
He was a chaplain's assistant, and actually became the when he was promoted to sergeant major, the very first sergeant major in that field in the Army.
That's interesting. Yeah. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
What he was doing to a segregated army.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
very interesting. Well, let's talk about this Appeals Modernization Act. This is something new that we need to know about.
Yes, sir. It's, the act itself was passed, I think, last August, and was signed into law, and is more commonly referred to as the Appeals Modernization Act. And what it does is really what we're trying to do is the appeals process, make it simple, timely, and and Fair to Veterans, offering veterans greater choice in how they resolve disagreements with VA decisions. And we feel that the new process, which is now being implemented now, it actually started a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, just February this year.
Yeah, is more efficient, timely, transparent, and fair for veterans seeking a faster resolution for their disagreement with a VA decision on a claim. And Ms. Montgomery is really our resident expert, and
Okay.
she has been diving into this with her team in great earnest over the last couple of weeks. So I think I need to shut up and allow her an opportunity to talk more expertly about this.
Ms. Montgomery, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So, as Mr. Turner said, there's this new Appeals Modernization Act out now, and it gives veterans a choice of one of 3 lanes. So I'll just go over the 3 different lanes for you. The first lane is the higher level review, and it's conducted at...
Pardon me, I just want to
Yes.
make sure people understand. This is if you have been denied.
Denied a
Yeah.
decision after February the 19th.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
so if they elect to go the higher level review option, then those cases, a decision will be made by one of 2 locations, either in Seattle or St. Petersburg. So they'll have someone take a new or thorough look at the decision that was previously made to see if the decision could be overturned. And in that case, you cannot submit new additional evidence. You cannot ask for a hearing. The decision will just be made based on the evidence that we have of record already.
Before we go further, just so because a lot of listeners may not be aware, what type of cases are we talking about normally? I'm sure there are many that,
Normally,
Yeah,
claims for compensation benefits, disability compensation
disability.
benefits.
Mhm,
Yes.
mhm, mhm. Okay, gotcha. All right, go right ahead.
Okay.
Thanks.
So the other lane is the supplemental claim lane, and it's conducted at the regional offices that we have across the country. And the veterans must submit new and relevant evidence in order to support their claims. And if they would like for someone to call them and discuss it, then that can happen also. And the VA will assist them in gathering the new evidence that they feel is needed in order for us to make another decision on their claim. So the last lane is the appeals lane, and veterans may opt to appeal a decision directly to the Board of Veterans Appeals in Washington, also referred to as the board. So the board offers 3 different options. You could get a direct review where the veterans have no evidence to submit and do not want a hearing before a veterans law judge, or they could submit evidence and also not choose to have a hearing, or they could choose to have the hearing option where they could submit evidence and also request to have a hearing where they could testify before a veterans law judge. So those are the 3 new options that we came up with. And so what the first 2 options will do, the higher level and a supplemental claim, is provide them with decisions within 125 days. That's our goal.
So this is a very significant statutory change, isn't it?
Yes, I've never seen anything like this in all my years at the VA.
That's very interesting. So how did that come about? I'm sure it went through Congress, I presume.
It sure did.
Yeah.
And this was in consultation and working with our stakeholder partners out there, some of the veteran service organizations like American Legion and DAV and others who helped pull this together, along with collaboration between the Veterans Benefits Administration and the Board of Veterans Appeals, working on this and pulling this together.
And how long has this been worked on? Because this really is a change.
Oh gosh, it goes back a couple of years.
Yeah.
As you know, I mean, the impetus for a lot of this was the huge backlog of appeals
Gotcha.
cases that we've had.
Gotcha.
I mean, close to 500,000, as I recall,
Ooh.
and then trying to get that down
Mm-hmm.
to a much more manageable number and to get resolution quicker for the veteran.
Did these fit into a certain category? You know, sometimes in law you can find out that a lot of appeals of certain cases, it's a collective group. I'm just wondering whether there was something that's not the case.
No, I wouldn't say
You
that
wouldn't
that is
say
the
that?
case.
Yeah,
No.
just all different types of issues then.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we haven't, it hasn't been in effect long enough at this point, I presume, to see what's going on.
That's correct. It was
Yeah.
just implemented
Yeah.
on February the 19th.
Right, yeah.
And I also want to mention that any veterans that filed appeals prior to February the 19th, that they will be processed under the old way. And so we're still working on those cases also.
Say that again now? Wanna make sure.
So we have a lot of appeals pending currently right now.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That were received prior to,
The new law.
yes.
Yeah.
So they will be processed under the old system.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's understandable. But now anything since the February of this year, I guess, will be under the new system.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. If people need further information, how would they get it?
They could contact the VA at 1-800-827-1000, or they could visit their local VA office, or they could contact one of their VA service representatives.
Okay. Yeah, this could be very, it'll take us a while to see exactly how things are gonna work out, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah, the benefits, hopefully, I'm sure. But the fact that this has even been brought about, I'm sure there was enough evidence there to see that it was needed.
Well, the thing, we have to remember what we're all about, and that's service to the veterans.
Right.
And to be veteran-centric in our approach to things. So this is continuous improvement, and I'm sure we'll probably discover other things that we may not have anticipated, and we'll react accordingly to fix those things that may not have been thought about at the time. If I can make just one public service announcement, and
Sure.
you've heard me say this before, many of us have relatives and friends who are currently serving
Right.
on active duty. And the one thing that I tell my colleagues who are still on active duties is to ensure that in communication with those military personnel who have decided to get out, that they make sure that they have a complete copy of their personnel records and their medical records. Because in our business, what's absolutely important as we process claims is documentation. And if the documentation is not there, it makes it much more difficult for us to process the claims and for us to provide the right disability rating, if you will, for the individual. And I say this because records, when they leave, belong to the government. And sometimes, through transition, they can be lost.
Yeah.
This is one way of avoiding that, because you now
You've
have
got
positive
it.
control, a copy
Right.
of your records, because that makes it much easier in processing claims, I think.
Makes a lot of sense. That's right. Our number is 312-374-8130. 312-374-8130. If you have a comment or a question, we'd be happy to take your call. This is really something. The Veterans Appeals Improvement and Modernization Act is one of the most significant statutory changes to affect VA and veterans in decades. And, even our Commander-in-Chief was saying the other day some very things about the needs for veterans. So even he's doing that. So this has been worked on for a long time, Hugh, but is this because of the fact that there were a lot of problems relative to people not getting the service that they think they should have?
I think that's in part
part of it,
Again, remember, the premise for this is a disagreement that the veteran
Right,
had
that's what-
with,
yeah,
the,
sure.
with the original
I was just
rating.
wondering why it hadn't happened, why this hadn't happened sooner. Or maybe because there were more, as you point out, disagreements.
Well, I think what happens is as you try to look for solutions to problems that are presented, that this is one of those things in which multitude of ideas come forth. You know, sometimes things weren't thought about, and as a result, with the collective discussions and exchange of ideas, this is how you come up with things to resolve problems that maybe we didn't think about before. But I think what's absolutely critical here was the involvement of not only the Veterans Benefits Administration and the Board of Veterans Appeals, but the inclusion of the veteran service organizations and members of
Yeah.
Congress to
Yeah.
pull all this together.
Yeah, that's great.
And also, I would
Sure.
like to add,
Please.
part of the reason why is because the appeals were taking so long for us to process. It was taking 3 years for us to provide the veterans with a decision. And if the case had to go to the board, it could take up to 6 years total.
Wow.
So this process, like I said, veterans should receive decisions within 125 days.
That's
or-
great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or if it has to go, if they select the appeals lane, then they anticipate a decision being made within 365 days.
Why, Deborah, did it take so long before? Was it just that they didn't have enough people? The money wasn't there?
Yes,
That was it.
yes.
And it took all this time to,
Yes.
okay, to get the money. Yeah, thank goodness we'll spend money on a lot of other things.
Yes, they
Yeah.
have really hired a lot of people
That's
to
good.
accommodate this new act.
And people like you, Miss Montgomery, who are so, you're going to take care of everybody, I can tell.
I'll try.
That's right.
Thank you.
Oh, that's great. What else do we need to know?
Cliff, one thing that's coming up,
yeah, sure.
being a Vietnam veteran, is the 50-year anniversary commemoration
Right.
of the Vietnam War, and that's occurring this month in March. So you'll see more, if you've not already seen, mention of the 50-year anniversary commemoration of the Vietnam War.
Yeah, Director McGill mentioned that
Yes.
he'll be doing. I spoke last year
Yes.
at the
Yes.
anniversary. yeah.
Yes.
And it was something
Yeah.
because I saw people there that I never thought I'd ever see again.
Yeah.
It's just a great thing that everybody
Absolutely.
just gets together.
And, and I think it's part of the healing process. You know, we've been
Yeah.
in a continuous healing process over such a divisive war.
That's true.
And in actuality, I tell you, I kind of did some research. I said, well, the Vietnam War is actually, it's been going on for more than 50 years. I mean, the fall of Saigon
Exactly.
was in April, the last day in April of 1975, which is when I reported to Fort Benning, to infantry school.
If sure. Yeah. Follow me.
Well, and I tell you, doing some research, it is based on 1969, in which then President Nixon said we would not be sending more combat troops to Vietnam at that point.
I thought it was so interesting that we had President Trump in Saigon.
Yeah,
Me-
irony. Yes.
Wasn't that something? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Meeting with the North Korean president, and I think it came out about the same way too, didn't it? Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that was an interesting situation. Yeah, the 50th, and there are so many people, for obvious reasons, that still have so many thoughts about that, whether it was the thing to do, the thing not to do. And I've heard some really funny stories. I had a friend that worked with me at a different station, and it was a morning show, and we used to eat breakfast afterwards. Well, it happened that the Taste of Chicago, the station was right across the street from Grant Park, and the Taste of Chicago had come, and he says, "Oh, we won't have to buy breakfast. We got all these tickets, you know." And I said, "Yeah, the station was giving away." I said, "Yeah, fine." And then he said, "Oh, it won't work." I said, "Why won't it work?" "Well, there's just too many. I'll never find what I want." I said, "We got maps right here in the free paper." "Oh, yeah, your office could read maps." I said, "Yeah, you should have been able to read maps. They caught you in Idaho, in Nevada, because he was avoiding the draft." And I said, "If you could have read a map, Canada was a lot closer."
Oh, gosh.
We have a caller, Rebecca.
Hi.
Hi, Rebecca. Thanks for calling.
How you doing? I found out, Cliff, that the veterans can get up to 3 years back of their money, all the way up to 2014 for their taxes, the ones who have disabilities. When I went down to pay a veteran's taxes just recently, and they told me that they can now get a refund because they have been, a lot of them have been overcharged.
Now,
for
which
their
taxes are we talking about, Rebecca?
The homeowners, for people who own their homes.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
Yes,
Now,
so I want
who
those
is saying-
veterans
who
to
is
get in
saying
on that.
Who is saying that? That's wonderful. Who's saying that?
The actual assessor's office. When I went to pay,
Cook County assessor?
yeah, the county
Okay,
assessor.
County assessor.
So you need to have her back on your show again, so she can tell you the whole details of everything. But
yeah,
yes, they
yeah.
told me that he can get his taxes back so up until 2014 from this year. Even though I paid this year, he's going to get a refund. So after I applied and had his doctor send in the statement that he had a disability, they're going to give him a refund all the way up into 2014. So all veterans, let's talk about it and make sure that we get our veterans their refunds back.
Well,
And he'll now not be paying taxes.
I think that's wonderful.
Yes, I do.
that is-
Okay, love you, Cliff.
I love you too, and thanks so much, Rebecca.
All right, bye-bye.
That's great news.